Hello, Hope City. Welcome to the Daily Devo. We are looking at Abraham in chapter 16. We're going to kind of springboard. I got a thought for you. Hey, I'm actually want to take you to Hagar. And what I love about this chapter is that though God has been spoken to Abram and Sarah, they're a married couple, and they've gone to the promised land, and God's hand is on them, and God's doing a great work, their faith and their relationship with God splashes out to everyone around them. And so likewise, our walk with God also splashes out to everybody around us. In this context, I love how it actually splashed out to Hagar. And so even though Hagar was put into an awkward, compromising position, she was literally being used as a surrogate mother to have a child for Abram at her expense. The Bible teaches us that Hagar, when she found out that she wasn't going to be elevated into that marriage relationship and that she was going to be treated harshly and still despised and be treated like a slave, she bolted. She left. And so in chapter 15, what we find is God's pursuit of an Egyptian slave and bringing a relationship. And what her discovery was is that when God pursued her and found her in the wilderness and revealed himself, her heart of worship, as God gave her a promise that says, Hagar, where are you going? What's going on? And Hagar says, I'm running away from my mistress and coming out here because of the treatment. And he says, I want you to go back. And I want you to know that the child that's within you, I'm going to bless that child. You shall call that child's name Ishmael, the one who hears God. And I'm going to give you a future. You have a hope. And her response to this incredible moment of salvation to God, the creator of all universe, she comes into that contact to that God. She yields herself and says, yes. And I am so grateful because I serve a God who hears and a God who sees. That's the God that we know. In our life and trials and circumstances, quite often Satan wants to tell you that God's not hearing and God is not seeing. Which brings me to the Sermon on the Mount, and this is where I want to kind of take you to, is in the Sermon on the Mount, where Jesus is introducing to us a father that was absolutely foreign to the concept in the Israel nation. They looked at God from a position of, yeah, he's God the Father and he's up here, but he's not really involved. He's just to be respected like my Father's to be respected, but he's not intimately involved in our lives. In Galatians chapter 4, Paul would refer that we have been given the Spirit of God so that we can cry out, Abba, Father. And that's an intimate term. It literally means in the Aramaic, daddy. So the relationship that God wants to have with us is one that is an intimate relationship, daddy. When I go to the Sermon on the Mount, that's the God that's being introduced to the Jewish nation. That's the God who sees and the God who hears. That's the God that we see grabbed a hold of Hagar, and regardless of her circumstances, regardless of where she was at, God reaches to her and grabs her, and they have a relationship, and she is encouraged so that she might endure hardships and difficulties, but it was all worth it because she knew the God who saves her soul. That's the God in which we have. And so with that, I want to take you to a couple of places in our text here in the Sermon on the Mount. So this is found in Matthew chapter 5, and I want to just look at verse 16 with you of chapter 6, verse 16. When you fast, do not look gloomy like the hypocrites, for they disfigure their faces for their fasting to be seen by others. Truly I say to you, they have received their reward. But when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face, that your fasting may be seen by others, but by your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you. What this is speaking to is an attitude of the heart of worship. Let not my worship be that which draws attention unto myself, but let my worship be before God and God alone. Let me do it in private. Let me worship God in my heart. Nobody else can see that, but it's directed to God, because the God who sees in secret, he sees your heart. That's an intimacy reality of God. That God's letting us know, I see you. Will you worship me in the quiet? Will you worship me in the home? Or only going to be worshipped at church where everybody else can see? See, that's the idea of the flesh using spiritual things and masquerading itself. Our worship must be directed to God and God alone, because He is the God who sees and He is the God who hears. What is the circumstances and trials and problems that we find ourselves in today? What I want you to know is the God of the Bible is a God who is intimate and wants to be involved in your life. Faith reaches out to the God of the Bible and says, Lord, I know you see me. I know you hear me. I know that my trials and where I'm at, that you're involved. I know, because this is the promise of your word. So help me to walk it out now in a way that exalts Jesus and causes me to grow in the grace and the knowledge of the Lord. It is adversities and difficulties that Hagar found the living God. And so likewise, in our adversities and difficulties, we come to find a resource, a help, a comfort in the time of need in the presence of God. That is ours. That's God's promise to us. That's us walking in the Spirit, walking in the promises of God. God bless you.